What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Final Four Fireside Chat. I'm Sam Donovan from Season 1 of Expedition Online, and with me again tonight, Jon Schneidman, famously from Season 4. Schneid, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. Excited to talk about a weirdly tense Final Four. I mean, they kept talking about how much they like each other while sniping the hell out of each other at the same time. So excited to get into it with you, Sam.
Fireworks certainly came out, and I think that's what happens when you are this close to the end and can smell
Yeah.
that victory. Um,
Oh, yeah. I have been at the Final Four, and I have been on the outside looking in at Final Four, and I really feel for Jess in this moment to get so close and to feel like it's there, and to also, and this I could also relate to Jess on, to also feel like the people voting you out are making the wrong decision. So I think that when faced with that reality, it's really difficult to manage emotionally.
100%. This is an intense round, and the emotions are definitely running high. But let's go back to the beginning of the episode, and we really jump right into the challenge. Let's just jump right into that because we have a lot to talk about. And just want to give a quick shout out to challenge coordinator Jess. As always, putting together amazing challenges. The finale challenges are always just absolutely insane. So, round of applause.
Yeah, this was a banger. This was a banger, CCJ. Freaking awesome.
And as we hop into it, so we have our 3 rounds, and in my eyes, Eli and Ryan both equally need this, but Ryan to me needs it just a bit more. And he goes out and wins that first round to get to the final round. I think that had to have been a huge weight off of his shoulders, knowing that he had time to rest, recenter his mind, and get ready for that final round.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just knowing that you're not dead yet and you get to relax, and get your mind right for whatever's coming up next. I wish I knew what that feeling was like in the context of this game. As those of you who have seen my season know, I never got to experience it. But but I think, yeah, he met the moment when he needed to, and I think that's really impressive.
Yeah, so he wins that first round. Aaliyah goes on to win the spoon in mouth challenge, which also just I'm glad I've never had to do that. That looks difficult. Eventually ends up going with Ryan head to head for exemption in what pretty much went the entire round. We went all 10 rounds in this boxing match, and Ryan eventually pulls it out. I personally, again, think Ryan really needed this one, even though Eli had won 3 in a row. I still think after the 2 compasses with the middle that Ryan's been playing, he was going to be the one, I think, targeted 1A coming into this final round. So huge win for Ryan in the situation.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, especially after last round, I don't think if he was eligible to be voted for. Eli, Aaliyah, and Jess, and they acknowledged it in this episode, they've been a unit the whole time. I think in the end that all 3 of them were comfortable going to the end with each other. And so I think Ryan would have been screwed. And so getting it done at the very end, again, like huge, hugely impressive to get that last one when you need it.
Mm-hmm. So then we hop right into the strategy round, and they all kept me on my toes here. From the jump, it really seems like it's between Eli and Jess. And I think
Yes.
we were talking earlier a little bit offline, but I think that's really a testament to Aaliyah's gameplay. Aaliyah was really the one to deflect right away, tell Eli Jess, and I think her deflection
Yes.
really painted those targets. Do you want to expand on that a little bit more? Just a little?
Yeah, I would love to. I think she was genuinely concerned that it was going to be her. I think we saw that in her voting confessional. She was clearly very worried. And so going to Eli immediately and saying, like, we can't sit next to her. Her story is too good. Which, in the last round, they both said to each other, she can't articulate herself. So just being quickly able to reframe the conversation and having Eli go, yeah, no, absolutely, is again, like, she is just so easy to get pulled in by. That's her superpower, and it's really strong. And then going to Jess and saying, he got voted most likely to win. We can't sit next to this guy. Like, confirming Jess's concerns about getting rid of him. I think Aaliyah you know what? I think there'll be some audience members who say like everybody wanted to be sitting next to Aaliyah. Who knows how this round could have gone? I think what was really impressive is she defined the conversation very, very early and kept herself safe. And I do think she's, you know, we're going to talk a lot about Jess versus Eli and Ryan, but I think she's very live to win this game for all the reasons we've been talking about throughout these fireside chats. Very sociable, very easy to like, funny, like a deeply funny person and somebody you enjoy listening to talk. And so I think she's very live, and it's very dangerous to underestimate her.
You can tell she's just being genuine the whole time too, right? Like some people you can kind of tell are being fake or being game bots or just
Yeah,
not being real with you. She, even if she is lying to you, it feels convincing, it feels real and
yeah,
genuine. So she has just done a great job, no better than tonight at the most crucial point in the game.
yeah. She fucking got me when she
Right.
told Ryan that she was going to vote for Jess. Like, I was convinced that she was going to do it. And you know, in her voting confessional, it seemed like she was going back and forth because she wanted to be defensive against potential votes against herself. Um, but in the end, she voted for Eli and stuck with it on a tie.
Which is crazy. And yeah,
And
so I think she was trying to avoid that 2-1-1 and getting,
yeah,
ousted at the end, which again, props to Aaliyah for avoiding that situation, not only sticking to her guns, but really trusting in Jess to vote with her. The bonds that they made were quite incredible. Considering Eli and Jess, another relationship I want to get into, have been together essentially from the jump, right? Like Eli mentions it during
yeah,
Crossroads. They were literally there from the first vote. Eli saying, Jess, it ain't going to be you, and kind of saving her. Those two, despite thinking the votes between them, could have just teamed up and said, hey, do you want to vote Aaliyah?
yeah. And she managed to avoid that. Which I think is her. I think it is a
100%.
testament to the way that she's navigated the whole game and navigated those relationships. The question I want to ask you is: should she have wanted Jess out of the game? Should she be happy now to be going against Eli and Ryan?
I think her best bet now is to have them split votes because something I
Yes,
want to talk about is Eli and Ryan have played
yes,
very different games, right? Eli has been
yes,
from the jump very loyal. I have written three words about the finalist. Eli, flashy, loyal, and he's making those moves, it seems like, very outwardly. He continues to call himself the prince. He is that flashy player. Ryan has been playing that middle game a lot. He's been maneuvering back and forth and has been playing all the advantages. There's kind of the loud versus quiet, but equally very effective games. And I could for sure seeing those votes being split. And then maybe that's where Aaliyah thinks, all right, they're going to kind of almost cancel each other out. She's probably hoping to have, I'm looking at the jury, Joshy T on her side, potentially Annie. She's hoping that she can maybe just pick up a couple of those votes. Additionally, sitting here with Jess, she voted with Jess at the end. Maybe Jess now is on her side and can be a champion for her on the jury. I kind of think this
yeah,
is a great move by Aaliyah in this point.
yeah. I think this round turned out great for her. Like, even if it was a little bit by accident because she wanted Eli out, for all the reasons you just said, I think Jess is going to go to the jury. Like, Aaliyah stood up for me. And, you know, and we talked a lot about Jess's framework and looking at the game last week. I think she is going to be impacted by Aaliyah standing up for her, even though she went eventually.
Yep, exactly. So my MVP of the well, it's close between Aaliyah and Ryan. Honestly, it's an interesting argument to make.
Yeah,
Let's jump to Ryan because ultimately I think this vote was in his corner. Um, he
yes,
easily could have jumped with the girls, voted Eli, potentially his biggest competition, at least again from that gameplay perspective. But Jess scared him
yeah,
in the sense that she's been building that story from minute one of the game.
yeah,
I'm not convinced that the jury fully buys into stories. We've seen Jess get on the nerves of some people on the jury, in fact. So I'm not sure
yeah.
her winning potential was as high as Ryan thought it would be. Now we don't know that, of course, but I'm hesitant to be with Ryan on this side right now.
Yeah, I understand exactly why Ryan thought what he thought. What he has heard, Jess is the friendliest, Jess is the most social. He has not worked as closely with her as Eli and Aaliyah did. So he saw far fewer of the flaws in her game as Eli and Aaliyah did, and as they pointed out. He has not really, and it would be interesting to go back and watch. It would be interesting to go back and watch. I don't know if he really witnessed some of the moments that we've discussed in the Fireside chats that really caused a damper on her game. I think the number one thing he's seen is friendly, social, and talking about her charity a lot. And so I can understand from Ryan's perspective, he's a young man. I think he's 23, 24, something like that.
Yep. Why
that was really frightening to him. I think he missed two things. One, and both are hard to suss out, but I think they were there if he had kept his eyes open to it. One, he was constantly getting grouped in with Eli. Constantly. The idea of Ryan and Eli as the big threats in the game dates back to Joseph. It dates back to Austin. And so while we may see the differences in their game, I'm not sure the jury sees the differences in their game. I think they are both kind of in the same big talkative bucket, you know, even if their tones are different, even if their methods are different. And I think he has more overlap with Eli's story than he thinks he does. I think the other thing that he missed, and this gets a little bit into the way Jess played this round, is that he was concerned that Jess was going to make a really strong argument in her final ascent speech, right? That like an argument that he could not assail, because it was going to be about her story, underdog, charity. Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And she made that pitch to him in their conversation at the Final Four. And so he heard it again, and he said, I can't do that. I can't go up against that. That scares me. What he missed is that is a bad argument at Final Four. That she was not making her best argument at Final Four. She did make some good arguments. She talked about how Eli has been the loud player throughout the entire game. She talked about how he was voted most likely to win in the Burn Book Challenge. Those were great. She also said, he's a great salesman. He could sell an Eskimo ice. That nailed it.
Great
Absolutely
line.
right, Jess. She also said Aaliyah doesn't like Eli, which is a great argument for keeping Eli because, so one of his closest allies didn't like him. There will be other people who don't like him either. She also said, because Ryan asked her, what was he like pre-rendezvous? And she said, Eli and I were stuck in the cranberries. He talked a lot of strategy. And when I would try to speak up, I would feel pummeled by him to the point that I would stop. She could not create a coherent argument around voting for Eli at the Final Four. And Ryan got really stuck on voting for her. And I wish he had said to himself, wait a minute, if she cannot make a consistent argument now, why on earth would she be able to make a consistent argument at the Final Three?
Right.
And so it was those two elements that I think got missed, that he missed. And I'm not saying he can't win. I think he still has played a really strong game, and he could still sell the hell out of it. But by his own framework of whose story can he differentiate his the most from, I'm not sure that is as true of Eli as he thinks it is.
I think that's exactly the right point, right? It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. He knows how he can pitch against Eli because it is similar. He can't combat whatever Jess says. Jess can simply win votes in a way that he cannot overcome. So, and the fact that it's recency bias too. She did say that to him right towards the end. So he got caught with that. And like you said, I think they both, all three, truly, this is, I mean, such a strong final three. I don't think
Yeah, unbelievable,
this,
unbelievable.
it doesn't bury his game by any stretch of the
No,
imagination. It
no.
does give him a little bit more of an uphill climb, I think, because Eli is just a great arguer and a great speaker. I think we can
Yeah.
move on to him now. He squeaks through this. He wins 3 exemptions in a row, loses this final one. You would think the target on his back is just massive, and he forces a tie vote and then wins the fire making challenge. First time in expedition history we go to a Final Four fire making. We've seen this in
Yeah.
the real show. This is such a resume builder. Whether or not you agree with it, who knows? But it adds to Eli's flashiness. I mean, this is one of the sexier games we've seen from start to finish, frankly.
Yeah, and Ryan knew it.
Yep.
Ryan knew it. So why'd he stick with the vote? He didn't have to. He could have accepted defeat. And instead he let that happen in front of the jury.
Is there grace
Um,
in that, though, or does it look better for Ryan to stick to his guns? I guess that's an interesting question. If he lays down, is that a sign of weakness for him to say, "Oh well, Ryan didn't get his way and Eli snuck through yet again"? So
I think my question would be, and I'm asking, would that be as bad as whatever the boost is to Eli by winning this challenge in front of the jury?
yeah, is it less of a negative than this is now a positive for Eli? Which I guess I'd
Yes.
have to agree. It would be less negative because again, right now Eli's game is just really looking good, and this is the
Yeah.
cherry on top of his cake right now.
Yeah. And Ryan has started to make, I think, some really strong pitches against Eli's game. Where would he have been if not for those challenge wins? What has he really done post rendezvous? Forgetting that Eli was just voted most likely to win.
Right.
You know? Um, but I get it. I get Ryan is so freaking smart, and I don't want it to feel like I'm bashing Ryan because I think that he made really strong arguments
Hmm.
for his positions. But I think my concern for him heading into final ascent is that he is viewing this through his own reality rather than possible perceptions.
Which
You
is, I
know,
mean,
and that's really hard.
it's the toughest part of all of these games, right? I mean,
Yes.
you're only
No,
living
but
your own truth, and it's so hard to step back and think about how everybody else has been viewing the game and everybody else's perceptions of how you not only you have played, but your competitors have played. So
Yeah.
it'll be a very interesting final, and I think we can start talking about the final now.
Yeah.
I kind of
Just one more thing. The thing we are asking Ryan to do is pick up on minute social cues. Okay?
right.
Like, this is the thing we are asking him to do is extremely hard. So it's hard for me to really be. I can't call him an idiot. I think all of his positions are really well argued. He can only see it through his own window, and so agree with him, disagree with him. He's a really smart guy, and I'm excited to see him argue it out in front of jury.
Right, and that's exactly right. We're being very technical. This is not doing an
Yes.
addition problem. This is doing calculus with your hands tied behind your back.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
he's playing a fantastic game. All three again have played fantastic. Really quick
Yes.
before we get to the final, one last shout out for Jess. While we had some criticisms of her game, she made the final four, and there were some low points, but there were some very high points in her game too. She was a key cog in the wheel that is season 6 right now.
Yeah, she was. I'm no Kendrick. I gave 10 minutes on Jess's game last week, so I don't have much more to say. But she was a very important power player in this game, and she convinced herself she wasn't.
Yep. Which ultimately,
especially at the end,
yep, led to her downfall.
Even if we talked about her inconsistent arguments to Ryan in that final conversation, and she couldn't resist whatever that impulse is for self-pity.
Yep.
Talking about how Eli pummeled her, talking about her charity again, like and those were things like if she had just drilled in on if she just had turned on the killer instinct and drilled in on Ryan, what are you doing? This guy has been voted most likely to win. What like you're talking about differentiating stories. Ali and I have the same story. Like
Yep.
But she didn't have it. She didn't have whatever that is in her. But she was a very powerful player in this game, and there is no denying that.
100%. So, Jess, our final member of the jury, before we'll move on to the final ascent. We have two flashy and one subtle player. I think this truly is anyone's game.
Can I throw one more thing out about Ryan?
Yeah.
The other thing about Ryan sending Jess, is there any world where Jess is either voting for him to win or advocating for him to win? You know, like, from Ryan's perspective, you know, he had this great relationship with Eli, at least a better, closer connection than he had with Jess. Are you willing to send somebody to the jury who you know the other two people had a better relationship with than you did?
That's a very good point.
That's something that's really hard as you're weighing all these different options. I don't know if Eli would have voted for him at the end. I don't. Who knows what Eli would have said? Only Eli can answer that. But he more likely, I think, that Eli would have gone and advocated for Ryan than Jess, who I think will go to the jury. And we can both attest, as people who have been on these juries, the last person to come to the jury is a very loud voice.
In a very convincing voice, right? They've seen the most of the game. They've been around for the most of it, and their opinion is certainly taken at a higher value than everybody else, frankly.
Yeah, I think something that sunk Robbie is that neither Randy nor Jack went to the jury advocating for him.
Yeah.
And like that was litigated. Like we have litigated that to death. But Randy advocated for Simona. And
right.
Jack I love you, Jack. Jack believed he was the main character of the season, and so didn't cede that to Robbie.
Right.
So
as we dive into the final ascent, we've waxed poetic on Aaliyah's game. I think Aaliyah is going to be very convincing, very, again, genuine, and loud isn't the correct word. I think she is going to be very open about her game and, again, convincing. I'm very, very fascinated, I think, above all of them, to see Aaliyah's final speech, because she has been more of that quieter, sit-back type of player for the first, we'll say, 75% of the game. She certainly got more talkative towards the end, but she's made it here now, and in a very convincing fashion. So I'm very, very interested to see her final ascent. The other two, Eli and Ryan, have both in their confessionals said, get me to the end and I could convince a fish to drink water, right? They are both so confident in their speaking abilities that, again, it's going to be very interesting to see both of them pitch their stories, especially because we've talked, their games have been separate but somewhat equal in a sense. So we're going to have three very opinionated finalists talking about their games here.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because I think Aaliyah is the most on-her-face likable of the three of them. I think she is going to be... I think she has the easiest road to charming the jury, right?
Yes.
And also because she was so much of a black box to so many members of the game, so many players of the game, and because she's so likable, I almost feel like she could say anything, and the jury will at least take it under consideration. And I think it'll be very hard for people to say no, that's not true to her. She just has a way about her that I think can be very convincing. Eli, I've been up front this entire game. There have been arrows shot at me this entire freaking game, and nobody else sitting here has had that experience. Congratulations to Ryan, you made it through 2 rounds where you were the target. I made it through 15.
Right.
Right. Both through my social ability, through my ability to win challenges, etc. I made it through Final Four when I really should not have.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I imagine Eli will say.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, I think, like, his benefit is that he can say, I lived in this loud place. I was considered a loud player. Nobody ever came for me until really the Final Five, and then I won at the Final Four. You all like me more than you like Eli. If you find Eli to be cocky and abrasive, I am abrasiveless Eli. I almost said cockless Eli, but I didn't say that. And so, and he is just so freaking smart. He is so good and was already starting to construct. Was started a final ascent basically at the Final Four crossroads. Yes. And to talk about how he looked at the game. So I'll be very interested to see how he goes about trying to cast Eli as a villain or as feckless, as somebody with no power. Because I think that is his strongest way to go through. Like, he has to convince the jury that Eli wasn't as much of a threat as he claims to be, you know?
Right. Ryan's game is upfront. I don't think he has to sell any of his positives. He certainly has to knock Eli's game a little bit and say, hey, I did this and he did everything just worse than I did. So I think I'm most curious to see what Ryan has to say. I sort of know where Aaliyah's going to come from, that charming angle, right? And hey, you all loved me. Yes, I've played a great game and we all worked together. I mean, I think she essentially worked with just about everybody at one point or another. Eli is going to continue to be the prince that was promised and bring his cocky attitude, which is, again, he can back it up. He played the game to have this cocky attitude. He can,
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Ryan is the one that I am most curious to see in this final ascent.
Yeah. I think he has to convince the jury he was nicer Eli and more strategic Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right.
That's the road I think he is going to try to walk down. I think he has the skills to do it. I'll be interested to see how Aaliyah and Eli counter that narrative. But I think these are three people who are going to be very strong at Final Ascent. And my one worry for Ryan, listening to him talk tonight, is that he's underestimating Eli in that Final Ascent. I'm a little worried that he thinks... By the way, I think the same thing about Eli. I'm worried that Eli is underestimating Ryan.
Oh, for sure.
But Ryan spent more time tonight already beginning his argument against Eli. And I think when you are as smart as Ryan is, and when you are as well spoken as Ryan is, it is very difficult to imagine somebody making a good argument against your points because I'm smart and I'm well spoken. How can anybody compete with me? And Ryan has certainly earned that confidence. Absolutely. I'm not saying that he's wrong about that. But if there is one person who can, it is Eli.
There's one more person more cocky and more competent than Ryan.
I'm excited to see them go at it. I worry that both of them have underestimated the other. And then if they are just brawling, there's Aaliyah just waving and smiling at the jury, ready to be their queen.
Yeah.
You know, like, what is it? Like, something that what Ryan said that I think is very astute is that juries like to vote for somebody who they see as their own avatar, right? Like, somebody who could validate their version of the game. Another reason that David beat Robbie last year. Like, a lot of that jury, like, if David was bad at the game, then a lot of that jury would have to admit that they were bad at the game. So it was self-validating to vote for David. But with Aaliyah, I think it could be very easy for Aaliyah to make herself that avatar. And especially if those two other guys are stuck locking horns with each other, forget those guys. Let's crown me and all just smile and laugh.
Yeah. But that's a great point. We've both sat on juries, and juries can be unpredictable at a nice way to say it, right? Like, it is ultimately down to these 7 people, however they want to vote. Whether they want to vote for their ally throughout the entire game, whether they want to vote truly for what they see as the best game that was played. It's
Yeah.
it is so funny how we bring these 7 differing opinions all together to crown the victor. And I mean, we've sat around this fireside and speculated and, formulated thoughts, broken down everybody's game this way, that way. There's not much else we can do except for watch these people speak at the end and ultimately crown a winner of season 6 of Expedition
I
Online.
know. Okay, who wins?
At this point, if I had to put money on it, I do think Eli has the best game and has the most eloquent and cocky way, again, we'll say it, to talk about. I think he's going to really sell his game well, and I think I'd have to put my money on Eli right now.
Yeah. I am gonna put my money where I would have put my vote, and I'm gonna pick Ryan because I think he'll be able to parry those Eli attacks, and if there's one person who could do it, it's him, and so that's where I'm gonna plant my flag.
I love it. 2 additional jury members. If we need to break any ties, well, we can't because we split our votes. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Well, I think that's really. I mean, I have no more to say. Again, I am just so excited to watch this finale. I'm ready to get into it. I cannot wait to see how this all plays out. I'm excited for the jury questions. I love that we still do it old school with individual questions. People can make it about them if they want. It's going to be such an electric final ascent.
We're handing Courtney a mic. We're just handing her the mic and saying, go. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be fantastic. Well, let's end it right there. That was another Fireside Chat. We're going to hand the mic off to all of the rest of the players to end this season and bring it home. For Jon Schneidman of Season 4, I'm Sam Donovan. This has been another Fireside Chat for Expedition Online Season 6.